You're on the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. What kinds of things happened this week when you weren't paying attention? It's my job to point them out to thee. And this segment is called Short Shots because of that number of articles, issues that have come up that maybe you didn't catch. The first one is Planned Parenthood's 2019 report, which they just issued. They performed nearly 350,000 abortions. That's a record number that pro-life groups say underscores the organization's tragic real mission. Planned Parenthood's report for 2018-19 shows the organization's clinics performed a total of 345,672 abortions during the fiscal year, an increase over the 332,757 in 2017-18, and the 321,384 abortions in 2016-17. This is the highest number of abortions ever reported by Planned Parenthood, which has seen a dramatic increase in abortions performed since the year 2000, when it reported 197,000 such procedures. It topped 200,000 abortions for the first time in the next year, 2001 and 2002, and passed 300,000 in 2007-2008. Planned Parenthood's total number of abortions has increased even as the overall number of abortions in the U.S. has declined. In 2000-2001, Planned Parenthood performed about 15 of the nation's abortions. Based on the new data, that number has jumped to an estimated 40%. That according to Live Action, which tracks abortion data. TheBlaze.com is reporting that Republicans in the U.S. Senate are offering a resolution that would change the congressional rules in order to allow them to dismiss articles of impeachment that are not sent for a trial in the Senate. The Constitution, they say, gives the Senate sole power to adjudicate articles of impeachment, not the House. If Speaker Pelosi is afraid to try her case, the articles should be dismissed for failure to prosecute, and Congress should get back to doing the people's business. End of quote. Can I get an amen? The resolution would allow for 25 days for the House to send articles to the Senate after an impeachment vote. After that, a simple majority could vote to dismiss the impeachment vote with prejudice for failure by the House of Representatives to prosecute such articles. Nancy Pelosi says she's going to present those this week. The Senate is set to open up with a motion that this is nonsense, there's no proof, there's no facts, there's nothing here, and take a vote. It should be interesting. According to Judicial Watch, they have come up with an analysis of data released by the U.S. Election Assistant Commission this year that says there are 378 counties nationwide that have more voter registrations than citizens living there and old enough to vote. That is in counties where registration rates exceed 100%. These 378 counties combined had about 2.5 million registrations over the 100% registered mark, which is a drop of about 1 million from Judicial Watch's previous analysis of voter registration data. This is how corrupt our voting has become. And now they want to make it digital. They want to put it online. They're out of their minds. Although San Diego County removed 500,000 inactive names from voter rolls following Judicial Watch's settlement with Los Angeles County, San Diego still has a registration rate of 117% and has one of the highest registration rates in the country. You do realize that only about 40% of registered voters actually vote. and it only takes a majority of half of those. Just a little over half. It's amazing. The whole country moves on about 20 million people, one way or the other. There was an article this week that really bothered me. I grew up in the 1940s, 50s, and this is something we did all the time. There were some young people hospitalized this past week, expected to survive, while police are asking the public for assistance in finding the suspect. The details? Milwaukee police sent out a series of tweets past Monday to notify the public of an incident detailing that a, quote, preliminary investigation indicates both victims were a group of juveniles throwing snowballs at cars passing by. One of the snowballs struck a white Toyota, no further description, and the driver of the automobile fired shots into the group of kids, throwing the snowballs, striking 2 young people. What is wrong with that man or that woman? And here's another sign of the times. Kids have started using delivery apps to escape their parents' cooking. This, according to Wall Street Journal's Heather Haddon and James R. Haggerty. They write in a head. I don't know what that is. It's a subscription. Rita George Shrkovic, an associate professor of theology living in Chicago, recently offered to make bacon and eggs for her 15-year-old son and 3 friends of his who had stayed the night. They said they weren't hungry. An hour later, an Uber Eats courier arrived with a load of tacos. The question is, why does this matter? Well, teenagers say they love the sense of control of ordering up food from someone other than their parents. What is the term we use? It's called emancipation. When a child is emancipated, these days, is it 18 still, or is it moved back up to 21? These kids are emancipating themselves, and the parents are letting them get away with it. These kids are in my house. They've stayed the night. They've ordered online, and a guy comes to the door, rings the doorbell. Who answers the door? Well, they do. They pay their bill and they get their money. Not in my house. I don't have a great big house. Never did. But the doorbell rings. I want to know who it is. And my teenagers don't run to the door and just take care of business. They tell me what's going on. It's my house. They're my children. I'm at the door. I send the man away. Oh, I make the kids pay, but they go get the food. See how bad I am? But that's the way it was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, in some families. Mine. Residents of a California beach city are furious at local officials. It seems the homeless people in this California beach city were supposedly, reportedly, moved into their neighborhoods to make way for a Bernie Sanders rally. NBC Channel 4 in Los Angeles covered the story in something they're calling the Streets of Shame series about the homeless epidemic in LA. Residents say that the city moved homeless encampments away from the beach and into their neighborhoods when Democrat candidate Senator Bernie Sanders held a campaign rally with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in Venice Beach, showing her support. Now, on the other side of that issue, residents told NBC that the homeless encampments have changed the character of their neighborhood and they no longer feel safe. Quote, our homeless have exponentially increased, and in the case of my block have more than quadrupled in less than a month, said Daniel Wojak. We've gone from being a beautiful neighborhood to a somewhat dangerous one, lamented resident Lois Whitman. Venice Police lead officer Adrian Acosta rebuffed suggestions that a housing shortage was the sole reason for homelessness, and added that addiction and mental illness are what is driving the crisis. At issue, drugs and emotional problems, meaning people who don't know how to live, blaming mental and or emotional and or others for their problems. And with all of this comes poverty, when people cease to work or are unable to work or are unable to find work. California is in the hands of liberals. Her major cities are run by liberals. Liberals govern with their hearts, not their heads. Extreme liberals hate America and everything it stands for, except the monetary benefits, which they believe belong to them. Why? Because they care. And you know you don't. You got a bad attitude. You want people to be responsible for their behavior. You're sick. After years of caring, California is now drowning in the homeless, drug addicts, and a sea of self-oriented, emotion-driven, drug-dependent people who have no idea how to live except on the street and at taxpayer expense. Now, some of this, perhaps most of it, stems from the destruction of the nuclear family. In many cases, the family itself, as children are generally left to raise themselves on TV, the internet, texting. We have an entire generation of parents who never saw nor understood what it means to have children. And it shows. I remember in the late 1970s, early 1980s, where the mental hospitals in New Jersey turned all their people loose. Unless you were a danger to yourself or to someone else, unless you just could not function, you were turned out on the street. Literally. And these people took up encampments, as you might imagine. We had one community, if you're familiar with New Jersey, you know the community just along the beach near Asbury Park. Struggling to come up with the name of it. It's an old Methodist encampment. It's a private town. Used to shut the street off. At, I think 10 o'clock at night or something like that. You couldn't get in anymore. Ocean Grove is what it's called. And I used to work for a seminar ministry, and we did seminars in their tabernacle every summer. And I got to talk to the people in the city that ran the place, and also some of the business people. All of these people are in there. The city, the state was renting out all of these summer hotels and other things to mentally challenged people who couldn't function. They were on welfare. And so when summer came and all these people wanted to come to the beach, there was nothing to rent. It was destroying the ambiance. It was destroying the economy of these people. And these people were kind of rough-hewn. I mean, they would walk the streets and, talk to anybody and scare people to death. That was 50 years ago. It's worse now. What is our problem? We learned that we couldn't fix mental illnesses. Not the kind like these people have. No amount of money, no amount of help that you gave them was going to help them. We knew that 50, 60 years ago. We're still pretending. Well, they just have a disease, they have a disorder. It's not their fault. Yeah, it is. And finally, I got a geography question for you. Or maybe it's a religious question. Or maybe it's a political question. I don't know. Here it is. On Jeopardy, Friday night, host Alex Trebek asked a simple question. He says, where's that church? The church built in the 300s, the Church of the Nativity. The answer, the first contestant to answer said, what is Palestine? Alex Trebek said, wrong. The next contestant answered, what is Israel? Trebek answered, right. And the social media experts went nuts. Jeopardy was slammed on social media because Bethlehem, the city where the Church of the Nativity is located, is technically under the control of the Palestinian Authority. So there you have it. Jeopardy's wrong. Or is it? The Palestinians do claim control of Bethlehem by virtue of the Oslo II Accords, signed and enacted in 1995. However, Bethlehem was in the land of Israel from about 1500 BC until 1995, until the days of the Oslo Accords. Now, I did a little research, and it's confusing when you do this sort of thing, and the dates may not be exact, but history tells us that in 605 BC, the Babylonians conquered Israel, deporting the best and brightest, taking them into captivity, meaning Israel was a nation then. Think Daniel. Later, Alexander the Great took Israel, 322 BC. The Romans took Israel in 63 BC. The Persians sacked Jerusalem in 614 AD. The Turks invaded Israel in 1009 AD. The First Crusade established the Catholic Kingdom of Jerusalem in 1099. The Turks came back in 1517. Napoleon drove them out in 1799. The first Zionist Congress secured a homeland for the Jewish people in 1897. The Balfour Declaration declared British support for a Jewish homeland in 1917. In 1948, Israel declared their independence. And it wasn't until 1995 that Bethlehem wound up in Arab hands, and that simply to assuage the political Palestinians. The truth here is the land of Israel has belonged to Israel for over 2,500 years. God gave it to them as an inheritance. They left only under duress, as various conquerors deported them or took them into captivity, but they always came back. In truth, there has always been a remnant of Jews in Israel. And Bethlehem, the birthplace of the Lord Jesus Christ, is in Jerusalem. Get used to it.